The NFL forges legends and creates timeless memories, but beneath the polished surface of glory, some players carve a path of pure destruction, a storm so fierce that not even the biggest names in the sport can look away. An NFL star was hit with a lawsuit accused of recklessly hurling furniture from the balcony of his high-rise condominium. From explosive confrontations in the Pittsburgh locker room to a spectacular public collapse in Tampa Bay, Antonio Brown left every team he touched in smoldering ruins. Then came the shocking moment. Antonio Brown, appearing remotely in a South Florida courtroom, faced the grave charge of attempted murder. Now, after years of holding his tongue, Tom Brady is finally breaking his silence, revealing why so many NFL players couldn't stand Antonio Brown. His saga is a tragic tale of breathtaking talent colliding with self-inflicted chaos. His was a career defined by the violent intersection of God-tier ability and an unquenchable thirst for controversy. His entrance into the NFL was deceptively quiet, a sixth-round draft pick from Central Michigan, small and unassuming, but possessing a blistering game-breaking speed. It was in training camp back in 2010 that he caught the eye of Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin. The potential was obvious. Tomlin acknowledged his advanced ability to catch the ball and create space, yet he cautioned that the young player still had a vast journey ahead of him. And what a journey it would be. Brown didn't just go the distance, he rocketed past everyone's wildest expectations, for better and for much, much worse. In the years that followed, he ascended into the pantheon of NFL greats, becoming a receiving titan who delivered 6 straight seasons of more than 100 catches and 1,200 yards. The numbers didn't lie. By any metric imaginable, he was in a class of his own. But his undeniable genius on the field would soon be eclipsed by the storm of drama that defined his legacy. The first real fissure appeared in January 2017 after a heroic playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where he hauled in 6 passes for over 100 yards. While most players would have celebrated a hard-fought victory, Antonio saw an opportunity. He went live on Facebook from inside the sanctity of the Steelers locker room, broadcasting team secrets and Coach Mike Tomlin's private remarks about their upcoming rivals, the Patriots. The league slapped him with a fine, but the real cost was the irreparable blow to his reputation. Brown had sent a clear message: the rules didn't apply to him, and the spotlight, no matter how it was earned, belonged to him alone. In the year that followed, his conduct off the field spiraled dangerously out of control. In 2018, he was slammed with a lawsuit alleging he had thrown furniture from his high-rise apartment in South Florida, coming terrifyingly close to striking a 2-year-old child on the ground below. Just weeks after that, he was clocked driving his Porsche at over 100 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. When tensions with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger finally erupted later that year, Brown completely abandoned the team's final practices, leaving the Steelers no choice but to bench him for Week 17. That decision effectively slammed the door on his career in Pittsburgh, though sources close to the team would later admit that his chaotic exit was a foregone conclusion. In February of 2019, Brown took to Twitter bidding farewell to Steelers Nation and declaring it was time for a new beginning, setting the stage for a chapter that would prove to be even more destructive. Oakland was meant to be his redemption. The Raiders acquired him from the Steelers for just a 3rd and 5th round pick, a seemingly small price to pay for one of the most dominant receivers in the game. But Antonio Brown had no intention of playing by any rules but his own. He made his grand entrance at the Raiders training camp in July 2019 with characteristic fanfare. Yet before he could take a single snap, a bizarre cryotherapy accident left him with severe frostbite on his feet, forcing him to the sidelines. Soon after, he stormed out of practice over a helmet dispute, refusing the league-approved model, and even after losing an appeal, he walked out again when denied his preferred gear. The conflict with the team's front office escalated with alarming speed. Brown then lit a match, posting a private letter online detailing a $54,000 fine from general manager Mike Mayock, adding the caption, "When your own team wants to conspire against you." That very same day, he allegedly had a heated confrontation with Mayock on the practice field that required teammates to physically restrain him. A fragile truce was attempted. Brown issued an apology during a team meeting, leading coach John Gruden to announce that they were all prepared to move forward. But just hours later, Brown detonated another bomb, releasing a video that featured a secretly recorded private phone call with Coach Gruden. The final implosion came days later when the Raiders fined him $215,000 for conduct detrimental to the team, a move that crucially voided the $30 million in his contract. Brown immediately went on the offensive on Instagram, declaring, "You will infuriate many people when you begin to act in your own best interest. I hold no anger towards anyone. I'm simply demanding the freedom to prove them all wrong." Within hours, the Raiders cut him loose, and his next destination was New England. He inked a 1-year contract with the Patriots, potentially worth $15 million, But before the ink was even dry, his signing was engulfed in scandal as a former trainer filed a civil lawsuit accusing him of assault. He played a single game. Less than 2 weeks after signing, amidst the swirling allegations, the Patriots released him. Brown's only response was a cryptic tweet: "Thank you for the opportunity. The marathon continues." It was clear now, social media had become both his weapon of choice and the stage for his unending drama. With every team he left, he burned bridges, scorning Pittsburgh fans and savaging his former teammates, singling out Juju Smith-Schuster with accusations of stealing the Steelers' team MVP award. A constant stream of tweets, posts, and videos amplified his every blunder, cementing his reputation as the absolute worst kind of locker room poison. In 2020, after serving an 8-game suspension for shattering the league's personal conduct policy, Brown was given a lifeline, joining the Buccaneers mid-season. But no matter how much chaos he created, his genius on the football field was impossible to deny. In a mere 8 games, he amassed 45 receptions for 483 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then came the ultimate stage, Super Bowl 55. Brown caught a touchdown pass, a crucial play in the Buccaneers' 31-9 demolition of the Kansas City Chiefs, finally earning him the first Super Bowl championship of his career. For anyone else, this would have been a story of redemption. For Brown, it was just another violent swing in a career defined by turmoil. The next season, the spectacle of drama erupted all over again. After missing games with an injury, Brown was slapped with a 3-game suspension for falsifying his COVID-19 vaccination status. Upon his return, he seemed as dominant as ever, but the deep-seated patterns of self-destruction were far from gone. In Week 17 of 2021, in the middle of a game against the New York Jets, Antonio Brown simply walked away. He ripped off his shoulder pads, threw his gear to the crowd, and flashing a peace sign, abandoned his team in the thick of a critical game. After the game, Coach Bruce Arians delivered the final verdict: he is no longer a Buc. By 2023, Antonio Brown's life had plunged into a new terrifying chapter, one that made his most infamous NFL meltdowns seem almost quaint. After his spectacular exit from the league in 2021, Brown vanished for nearly 6 months, only to surface in Dubai, living an extravagant life seemingly disconnected from all reality. But in November, the bill came due. U.S. Marshals had Brown extradited to New Jersey before he was flown to Miami, where he was confronted with an unthinkable new charge: second degree. Attempted murder, a charge born from a violent confrontation outside an amateur boxing match in Miami's Little Haiti. According to the police report, Brown got into a fistfight following the May 16th event, a violent scuffle with a man named Zulkarnain Nantambu. The brawl escalated into something far more sinister: the sound of gunfire. Video footage surfaced that appeared to show Brown on a sidewalk holding a gun, allegedly firing at Nantambu, who was seen diving to escape the hail of bullets. 4 days later, Nantambu alleged to investigators that Brown had tried to kill him, firing shots that may have grazed his neck and leaving him in absolute terror for his life. Brown's defense was immediate and unyielding. His lawyer argued it was a clear-cut case of self-defense, insisting that Brown never intended to kill anyone and that he fired only to protect himself and escape the escalating danger. In a bizarre twist, even the supposed victim's own lawyer expressed doubt, admitting it was uncertain if Nantambu was even shot, describing the injury as merely consistent with a bullet graze. In the eye of this legal hurricane, Brown himself was the picture of unnerving calm, even smiling as he was released from Miami's Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center. Cameras captured him embracing his attorney before casually walking over to a food truck, seemingly immune to the crushing weight of the accusations he faced. "God is great," he proclaimed, leaning on the faith he so often invoked. For Brown, existence had become a precarious balancing act. He was a prisoner in his own home, tracked by a GPS ankle monitor, yet he was still permitted to work and provide for his family, 7 children with an 8th on the way as the legal battle raged on. Through it all, Antonio Brown refused to be anything but himself. Following the May altercation, he took to X, claiming he was the one who had been attacked by a group trying to steal his jewelry, and he vowed to press charges against them. Yet all the chaos and drama swirling around Antonio had ignited a firestorm of fury, and it was Tom Brady who finally revealed the truth about why the league's players truly despised him. The conflict between them was never just a clash of 2 football titans. It's a modern tragedy of talent trust and devastating betrayal that unfolded across multiple teams through years of chaos and ended in a public meltdown that left the world speechless. Brown, one of the most electrifying talents the NFL had ever witnessed, first entered Brady's orbit in New England. But it was in Tampa Bay where their bond would be forged and ultimately shattered. Back in 2020, Brady had personally lobbied for the Buccaneers to sign Brown. He championed his cause to Coach Bruce Arians, convinced that Brown's skill was the missing piece for a championship run. And it was obvious he wanted Brown to find redemption as a man, too. At first, the gamble seemed to pay off. The duo was instrumental in Tampa Bay's Super Bowl 55 victory. Brown produced on the field, and Brady became his public shield, defending him against every on-field mistake in early social media firestorm. But behind closed doors, the partnership was beginning to crumble. In May 2021, a private text from Brady to Brown was leaked to the world. TMZ published the explosive message after Brown himself posted a screenshot of it, only to delete it moments later. The message was a brutal, soul-bearing intervention. "You are demonstrating very poor decisions and poor communication to so many people who have gone above and beyond to help you. You are acting selfish, and unfortunately many of those people are exhausted by the erratic and unpredictable emotional behavior." But Brady wasn't finished. "When we first crossed paths, you were driven by humility, a hunger to learn, and a desperate desire to rebuild your life. And in what felt like the blink of an eye, you did it. You accomplished extraordinary things, launching yourself onto a path of undeniable long-term greatness. But tragically, you have devolved back into that immature, selfish boy, a man driven by impulse, recklessness, and self-interest. I, for one, am profoundly disappointed by your behavior over these last few months. That humility, that relentless drive you once possessed, seems to have vanished completely. You've traded the company of good people who genuinely wanted you to win for a crowd whose lives are spiraling and they are dragging you down into the abyss with them." This message was no random outburst. It was the breaking point after months of enduring Brown's increasingly erratic conduct. Brady was extending a final lifeline, desperately trying to pull him back from the brink, but Brown responded by weaponizing it, plastering the private exchange online and igniting a media firestorm. He twisted Brady's words, framing them as petty and condescending, turning a moment of private counsel into a spectacle of public controversy. The NFL community's reaction was swift and unanimous. They stood with Brady. Everyone from fans and analysts to his own teammates saw the truth. A legendary quarterback was trying to save a superstar receiver's career, and that player was spitting in his face for the effort. The situation was spiraling out of control. 8 months after that text, he engineered his most infamous meltdown to date, tearing off his jersey mid-game against the Jets and walking away from it all. That one bizarre public act of defiance sealed his fate, getting him cut from Tampa Bay and effectively torching his entire NFL career. But the cracks had been forming long before that implosion. Tensions were already boiling over contract issues, with Brown refusing to sign a new deal even after they had won a Super Bowl together. Brady himself was reportedly incensed by the stalemate, even confronting Brown's agent over the stalled negotiations. In the end, Brown signed a 1-year contract worth $3.1 million a deal, heavily laden with performance-based incentives. But if anyone thought that would end the drama, they were catastrophically mistaken. He was now financially chained to Brady's ability to get him the ball, and that pressure cooker of dependency exploded into public view during a Week 17 game when his frustration became agonizingly clear. Buccaneers coach Bruce Arians later confirmed that Brown had been seething at halftime, enraged about not getting enough targets. Insiders suggested the rage was rooted in money. His contract was a minefield of bonuses for 50 and 70 receptions, 6,800 receiving yards, and 5 and 7 touchdowns. Falling short of those numbers meant watching $1 million in bonuses vanish into thin air. Yet through it all, Brady still tried to be his rock, sending him private messages begging him to see a therapist and regain his emotional balance. But Brown took that private support and forged it into a public weapon, posting screenshots and mocking the advice, shattering the last fragments of their bond. The feud plunged into darkness when Brown began attacking Brady's personal life for the world to see. He viciously taunted him about his divorce from Gisele Bündchen, twisting the knife by claiming their friendship was purely transactional, contingent only on football. On the Full Send podcast, Brown sneered, "Tom Brady's my friend. Why? Because I'm a good football player. He needs me to play football." People have different meanings of what friendship is. Despite the onslaught, Brady remained a fortress of professionalism. He refused to escalate publicly, deftly sidestepping reporters' bait, while his composure never cracked. But behind the scenes, he was reportedly devastated. A source revealed to the Daily Mail, "Tom looked after Antonio for so long and supported him through crisis after crisis. But when Antonio started his attacks and they got more and more negative, Tom continued to take the high road. But it has been going downhill for the last few years and there isn't a friendship anymore. It's over." Then came the final shocking blow: legal trouble. Brown was accused of attempted murder at a Florida boxing event in 2024, fled the country to Dubai, and was eventually extradited back to the U.S. Sources confirmed the inevitable: Brady would no longer offer him any support. The lifelines were cut. The mentorship, the brotherhood, the powerful connection that once defined them was officially and irrevocably destroyed. Brady has insisted he only ever wanted the best for Brown. On Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, he confessed, "I wanted the best for him. I think I saw a spark in him that if put in the right place could be incredible, not just for the team he was on but for his life and what he could accomplish. I always root for the best. Yet Brown's choices consistently and systematically annihilated that support. From contract wars and public taunts to unhinged on-field behavior and legal horrors, Brown didn't just burn every bridge, he napalmed them. On the other hand, their relationship wasn't always the disaster it became. In Tampa Bay, it was Brady who fought tooth and nail to get Brown on the roster. In return, Brown delivered 45 catches for 483 yards and 4 touchdowns in 8 games during their Super Bowl run. That championship victory was a direct result of Brady's unwavering trust and his incredible leadership. Yet even that monumental achievement couldn't counteract the personal poison Brown brought into the locker room. In retrospect, the Brady-Brown saga is a chilling case study in talent versus temperament. Brown had the skill to be one of the greatest ever, but his monumental ego and his willingness to self-destruct alienated every teammate and coach in his path. Brady, in contrast, was the steady professional, a mentor invested in his success, but ultimately he couldn't control the choices of a man hell-bent on his own destruction. Antonio Brown's career was a firestorm of controversy, so let's examine the NFL players who got caught in the blaze and the explosive moments that defined their feuds. For nearly a decade, Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger were an unstoppable force, in Pittsburgh creating a quarterback-receiver tandem whose productivity was legendary. From 2010 through 2018, their statistics painted a brutal picture of their shared dominance. In that 129-game stretch, Roethlisberger connected on 3,084 passes for 41,449 yards, throwing 275 touchdowns against 129 interceptions. Brown, appearing in 130 games, snatched 837 receptions for a staggering 11,207 yards and 74 touchdowns. Their connection on the field was undeniable, but behind the scenes, their relationship was fracturing. Insiders revealed two men with completely opposite philosophies on preparation. Brown attacked every practice as if it were the Super Bowl, running at full speed in every drill, even with the second and third string quarterbacks. Former long snapper Cameron Kennedy recalled Brown's relentless work ethic in training camp when Roethlisberger was resting, describing him as one of the most ferocious workers on the entire field. He noted that Brown's ferocious intensity never wavered, and it was a source of growing friction. The tension grew because Roethlisberger, a battle-hardened veteran with 2 championships and a long injury history, practiced with a far more guarded approach. Roethlisberger deliberately limited his reps during the week to focus on healing before games, a routine he felt his experience had more than earned him. That stark contrast in approach became a festering wound between them. Brown was desperate for more live reps with his quarterback throughout the week, convinced their disastrous timing on Sundays was a direct result of that failure to practice. Every time the offense ground to a halt or a play fell apart from miscommunication, Brown saw it as a shattering confirmation of the deep divide between his own mentality and Roethlisberger's. Kennedy believed that Brown's boiling frustration was born from a simple expectation. He demanded the same all-out urgency from everyone, and when he didn't get it, the situation turned toxic. Their silent war finally erupted after a crushing 2018 loss to the Denver Broncos. Roethlisberger went on his weekly radio show and publicly threw Brown under the bus, blaming a botched route for a critical interception. The betrayal echoed through the locker room and enraged Brown, who was adamant that such criticism should never leave the family. Piled on top of the simmering practice frustrations, this public shaming was gasoline on a raging fire. The final irreparable break happened late in that 2018 season when a heated argument between Brown and Roethlisberger exploded during a Week 17 walkthrough. Brown stormed out of the facility immediately after and simply vanished from practice for the remainder of the week. While the team tried to spin the story as a knee injury, the truth was undeniable. This was a full-blown mutiny. Pittsburgh benched him for the season's final game, and after the Steelers failed to make the playoffs, that explosive confrontation marked the end of Brown's time with the team. That offseason, he was shipped to the Raiders, and after leaving Pittsburgh, Brown unleashed a torrent of criticism aimed directly at Roethlisberger. He branded him with having an owner mentality, claiming Roethlisberger behaved as if he were untouchable, free to publicly humiliate teammates and coaches without any fear of reprisal. According to Brown, players only tolerated the abuse because of Roethlisberger's godlike status within the organization. This public war of words raged on through the 2019 offseason, with Brown savagely responding to Roethlisberger's interview comments and demanding he stop dredging up the past. Their bitter exchanges during this time revealed just how deeply their relationship had rotted. But despite the catastrophic fallout, Brown eventually confessed his own part in the disaster, admitting he allowed his emotions and the pressure from outside forces to dictate his actions. In a stunning turn, he posted messages hailing Roethlisberger as the greatest quarterback he'd ever played with, lamenting a connection he knew he would never find again. Roethlisberger, in turn, admitted he wished he had handled the conflict in a different way. But the conflict with Roethlisberger was not an isolated event. Ryan Clark and Antonio Brown were not just teammates. They were two men whose journey began as a friendship, but twisted into a bitter rivalry, ultimately becoming one of the most public player versus player wars the franchise had endured in years. Clark was the undisputed veteran leader, one of the most powerful and respected voices in that locker room. Brown was the hungry, explosive young talent who arrived with a blazing ambition and a personality that was impossible to ignore. Initially, they were inseparable. Clark mentored Brown, helping him with trainer's recovery and even personal crises as he adjusted to the league. But the moment Brown's star began to rise, their brotherhood shattered. The breaking point came during training camp in 2012. It happened on the very same day Brown signed a colossal contract extension, cementing his place among the league's financial elite. During intense one-on-one drills, a defensive back illegally slapped Brown across the helmet. On the very next rep, Brown retaliated, smacked the defender back, burned him on the root, and caught the ball. The legendary defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau stepped in absolutely livid, but rather than submit, Brown completely exploded. He unleashed a furious tirade on Lowe, absolutely unapologetic, and then turned on the defense, roaring that he would not be disrespected by anyone, not a coach, not another player. And that was the spark. The defense swarmed in. Chaos erupted as players from both teams dove into the fray, and the practice drill descended into an all-out brawl. Even Troy Polamalu was caught in the middle of it. Tempers detonated, and the entire practice completely fell apart. Across the field, Ryan Clark saw it all begin. But the second he heard Brown screaming about his brand new contract, something inside Clark just broke. He roared, "They never should have paid him. I knew it would change him." For Brown, those words were a poisoned arrow that he never pulled out, citing them again and again as the ultimate proof that the entire conflict was fueled by pure jealousy. The animosity only festered, and when Clark hung up his cleats to join ESPN, it exploded. Clark became one of the very first voices in the media to publicly condemn Brown's spiraling conduct. He called out the constant tardiness, the toxic attitude, the volcanic sideline meltdowns, and the pure mayhem that ultimately destroyed Brown's career in Pittsburgh. Clark went on national television on shows like First Take and didn't hold back, labeling Brown's actions as unprofessional, toxic, and eventually a cancer that was killing the locker room. Brown's response was exactly what you'd expect, ferocious and deeply public. He launched a counterattack on X, branding Clark and Uncle Tom and accusing him of shamelessly using his name to chase fame on television. We need to hear what you think about this. Sound off in the comments below. And before you click away, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to NFL Rivals so you never miss another story. Model.